Welcome to Roofing Road Trips with Heidi. Explore the roofing industry through the eyes of a long-term professional within the trade. Listen for insights, interviews, and exciting news in the roofing industry today.
Hello and welcome to another Roofing Road Trips from Roofers Coffee Shop. This is Heidi Ellsworth, and we are here today to talk about equipment. And not just any equipment. We're talking the top of the industry technology-enabled equipment from Leister. Yep, everyone knows Leister. It's so exciting. And so we have Dave here from Leister returning to the show to talk to us about some really exciting news. So Dave, welcome to the show.
Heidi, great to be back with you. Thanks again for the invitation.
Oh, I love it. Dave, let's start out. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Leister and Leister overall.
Certainly. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Dave Nordentoft. Again, I'm the roofing products manager here for Leister in the United States. Been with Leister now for almost 10 years. So my core responsibilities revolve around managing our distribution and getting product out into the marketplace. So I oversee and I work with our distribution partners across the country, managing those relationships, taking care of things such as training and education, application training, and that sort of thing, as well as industry relations with our friends in material manufacturing and that sort of thing. So that's my core responsibility.
That's great. That's great. And you know what? I know everybody knows the name and they're very familiar, but maybe share a little bit about Leister and its history of innovation.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Leister will be celebrating its 75th anniversary as a company as we head into 2024 here. And, we like to pride ourselves on being innovators and pioneers in hot air welding technologies, whether it's the roofing industry, which of course most everybody knows us for, but we really cover a myriad of different industry sectors and applications. I mean, if it's a thermoplastic based product, I mean, there's probably some type of a Leister tool that can work with it, whether it's for welding or heating or activating or sterilizing, treating. There's all sorts of, it's almost infinite in a number of applications. And so, these are the sorts of things that we've been involved in, including other, nanotechnologies and things involved now with laser plastic welding and that sort of thing. So we're always, taking a look at new technologies and ways that we can improve our products and, bring new products to the market and improve on what we have.
Yeah. Well, talking of new products, that's what we're talking about today. But before we jump to that, really, when you talk about a history of innovation that you just shared, everyone knows the brand VARIMAT. And I would love to hear from you a little bit about how did it come to the roofing industry? Give us a little bit of history on the VARIMAT machine.
Sure. Thank you. The VARIMAT machine, the first version of VARIMAT was brought into the market in 1996. And it replaced a machine that we had prior to that. It was called the Variant, which was really one of the first welding machines for roof, specific for roof applications and whatnot. But the VARIMAT became our first welding machine that was digitally managed. Okay, digital technologies, right? So the Variant prior to that was an analog machine, meaning you just had independent control over just the temperature from, say, 0 to 9 and the speed from 0 to 9. And there was no way to really kind of control and manage those key welding parameters. And so we looked at newer emerging, digital technologies to be able to gain more control over the welding process and control over those key welding parameters. And so that was really one of the big parts of that VARIMAT platform. And it was optimized and really designed to try to, specifically address the needs of that welding process for thermoplastic roof membranes. And so, that was the genesis of the VARIMAT platform again. And, so, we refined it and, it was wildly popular and we're looking forward to new things on the horizon.
I know it's very, and you know what? When the VARIMAT came onto the market, that really was a game changer for contractors, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was, because it really put a lot more control into their hands over this process and gave them the ability to begin having the ability, I guess, in a sense, to sort of really dial in the welding process and get predictable, reproducible welding results on a much more consistent basis. And so I think that's really where it was a game changer. In addition to that, because of the newer blower technology that was coming out and nozzle designs and things like that, it really gave us the ability to not only improve the process, but pick up some productivity along the way. Because again, time is money. And so contractors were looking for ways to be able to, not just have good quality control over the process, but also, pick up some production along the way as well.
I just think about how much the industry has changed over the years. And when you think about that, and then you think about how the VARIMAT has really been a part of so many contractors and roofing companies' lives, let's talk a little bit about some of that evolution. So basically, going to the VARIMAT V and in 2003, kind of take us through that timeline through to today.
Yeah, sure. So the VARIMAT was replaced by the VARIMAT V in 2003. There was a lot of similarities really between those two machines from a mechanical standpoint. For the most part, it was very much the same. I think there were some enhancements that were made to electronics to make it a little bit more stable, a little bit more reliable under more challenging conditions. I think things that we learn along the way by having things field tested, over the years and get the feedback from contractors, what works, what could be improved, that sort of thing. So I don't really think there was a lot of significant mechanical changes made to it, but there was definitely some enhancements in electronics that helped make it more stable and operate better under a wider range of challenging conditions that are always present on job sites. Picked up some productivity along the way with that as well. But essentially it was mechanically speaking, certainly it was almost identical to the VARIMAT.
Yeah. And then in 2009.
Well, that was a big game changer year for us. So 2009 was the year we introduced the VARIMAT V2, which was essentially a new machine from the ground up. I mean, you looked at it and you said, oh yeah, that recognize it as a VARIMAT, but used the opportunity to really integrate some brand new features into it at that time. So a brand new blower. We went to a brushless blower at that time, completely redesigned the nozzle configuration to what we call our speed nozzle, completely redesigned the display and the user interface to our eDrive, which is our push and turn button system. And so, it really changed it electronically as well. We now had more we'll call like power management features into it, which again made it so it was a friendlier machine to operate under more challenging electronic conditions. Again, things that we don't have a lot of control over, but our engineers like to try to figure out ways to work around some of these things. So that really lifted the bar from a productivity standpoint as well. It was a much more powerful machine, greater airflow with the nozzle configuration and what we had a patented pressure wheel on it called the pendulum wheel, which gave the wheel a little bit more adaptability on the roof surface to rock back and forth and make micro adjustments during the welding process to go over any imperfections on the roof surface, maintain better contact. All those things all coming together all helped make it a more robust and more reliable machine. So here we are now since 2009, closing in on 14 plus years of that machine being out in service. And it's been a great machine for Leister. It's our flagship production welder. And a lot of contractors have done quite well working with that machine. We're very proud.
It's the leader. It's just it's the leader. So okay, here we are, 2024. This is pretty exciting, and you have an announcement on a new version release. In fact, 3 different machines. So
absolutely,
tell us what's up, Dave. This is so cool.
Well, you mentioned, trying to be a leader and trying to be an innovator. Leister, takes those things seriously. And so, you take a look at a machine that's been around for 14 years, and there's a lot of folks that would say, hey, this machine is great, and it does exactly what we need it to do. And, there's it's reliable, it's low cost to maintain, long life cycle to it. So there's a lot of things that are really positive. So why do we need to replace something that's working, And I think, as a manufacturer, I think you don't really want to get complacent. You want to sit back and say, everything's working fine, so we don't need to do anything. And I think over the years, you still have opportunities to take a look at every single aspect of the machine and say, what can we do better?
Yeah.
And we get feedback from the contractors all the time and from material manufacturers that offer us, ideas and things that they think could be done to make the process a little bit better. And so you take a look at all the individual little things that they talk about. And you say, well, that by itself maybe is not significant or whatnot, but when you wrap it all up and you integrate all these different changes into it, well, pretty soon you have really transformed the machine into something much better. And so, we really feel like, at the end of the day, it's our responsibility, almost in a sense, to the industry to try to say, hey, what can we do better? Or we can do this better. And we can make the best welding machine in the industry. And, we have other things that we can offer and some newer technologies and newer features that we're excited about. But at the end of the day, we want to put the best welding machine in everybody's hands. And you mentioned, a few moments ago that we've gone from 1 to 3.
Yes.
So we are differentiating the line a little bit. So it's not going to be so much maybe a one size fits all proposition like it's been for a really long time, because we feel like there are differentiated needs within the industry, and so we're trying to meet more people's needs, more contractor needs, by differentiating the line a little bit and offering. And we started doing this a long time ago. I mean, this is not something that's just unique to our roofing category. We've been doing this in a lot of other tool categories as well, because in just about every industry sector, there are differentiated needs. And so, we want to try to meet more of those needs with a broader, offering in our portfolio than maybe we had in the past.
Yeah. So, okay, let's start because I'm excited, but let's start with the 300. So, and I'm going to, let the cat out of the bag here with the new release, but there's 300, 500, and 700, which is, they're all, just talk about innovation. So let's start with the 300. Kind of tell us what are some of the benefits? Maybe just go over, like you did it the other day, we were talking, but I'd like to hear the differences between 300, 500, and then up to the 700.
Sure. So what I'll start with is the fundamentals, or the basics of what's going on mechanically. So basically, this platform is brand new from the ground up. So we use the opportunity to take a look at every single aspect of the machine and the process, starting from the wheels that are touching the roof and up to the handle and everything in between. Okay, so if we kind of take a walk around the machine, whether it's a 300 or a 500 or a 700, from a mechanical standpoint, it's essentially the same platform. Okay, so we'll touch on all that, but we'll start at the 300 level. So basically, if we start on the back side of the machine, on the user side, one of the first things that we did was we changed how we manage our transport axle in the back. So now we've added an adjustable, flexible transport axle that can slide out to one side now. So we have a much more balanced handling system. So it makes it so that it's again more of a balanced handling. It's going to track straighter and easier, perhaps, than any predecessor. So it's going to be great for moving the machine up to the next seam, or for doing basic field seams. But again, that axle can be slid and retracted back in. So because users like to take the VARIMAT and slide it up against a curb or a parapet wall and do flashing details with it as well. So still be able to do that with the machine, but now you have the flexibility to change that stance and you have a much more balanced process through that. One of the other things that we did at the opposite end of the machine was we changed the weight distribution. So we took a look at this and said, we took a look at the VARIMAT V2 and the weights were kind of hanging off the front end of the machine. We've now completely redesigned this and taken and integrated the weight into the front end of the machine and moved the center of the weight further back and over the pressure wheel, which is really where you want it and where you need it. So we've been able to do this and integrate this weight system into the front end of the machine. And then there's supplemental weights that can be added to the top of the machine again, straight above where the pressure wheel is. And so we've increased the amount of welding pressure by a significant amount over the VARIMAT V2 with only adding a few pounds total to the overall weight of the machine. So, through this redesign, it's a little bit tighter, a little bit shorter, a little more efficient in terms of the design concept to it, but without adding a lot of extra weight. We've increased the welding pressure by a significant amount. So that'll make it, a better, more reliable process, regardless of what kind of membrane thickness or ambient conditions you have. It's gonna really improve that welding process and that reliability. So one of the other things that we addressed as well is the way that we manage the way that the blower and nozzle is released and inserted into the seam. So up till now, we've used we'll call it trigger lock pin system that's held that blower into place, and so users have to reach down below, squeeze that trigger, release down, and slide that blower in. It could be a challenge. It's a spare part that can break. We kind of thought it was a little bit of an Achilles heel to it. Completely redesigned this whole concept now and got rid of that traditional trigger lock pin system. I think a lot of the people that use our machines are going to be very appreciative of this improvement. But now basically what the users do is they place their hand over the top of the blower handle, and then to the right where their middle finger and ring finger are, there's almost like a small paddle, almost like a paddle shifter. But basically what it is, it's a lever that can be squeezed. It's spring loaded to release and drop that nozzle down and slide it over into the nozzle. It's an easy process. We've improved the way that blower is mounted. It's no longer on the traditional axle system to it, so it's a better process. The starter sensor is now located internally within the machine, so it's protected. So it's going to be a much improved process.
A lot of safety. It seems like there's a lot of. I mean, not that it wasn't safe before, but you just are building on those safety features.
Yeah, safety issues and just again, reliability issues as well.
Yeah.
Things that we look at and say, why don't you just do it better?
Right.
Make it easier, make it more ergonomic,
right.
And improve the welding process through all this at the same time. Everything that we've done, we've always put an eye on this to say, is this making a better machine? Is this going to make it a better welder? Is this going to make it a better experience for the user?
Right.
And try to make sure that we're always bringing more value to them, to that process. One of the other mechanical things that we did is we separated the air dam belt system from the drive wheel. So it was kind of tied and integrated into the drive, which was, part of the pressure wheel and drive system to it. And by separating that now, what we've done is we've created a little less conflict down there. And so it's going to reduce any of the chances for wrinkling that would take place before. We changed the type of air dam belt on it to a flat belt, so it changes the way that the air dam operates, and it relieves a little bit of the pressure that used to be borne on the air dam belt, shifting all the pressure onto the pressure wheel, again, which is where we want it and where we need it. So the pressure is now relieved off of the air dam belt. It operates independently from the pressure wheel, so it's going to be definitely a more reliable system and process. And we also beefed up the roller system to it, made it just a little bit more sturdy and reliable. So that's an improvement we believe as well. One of the other things that we changed was the location of the power supply coming into the machine. So so in the past, the power supply has always come in what would be the user side end of the machine. So if I'm welding and I'm going backward toward me, the cable would be, potentially in the direction of the weld. So users had to figure out cable management and how to, keep that out of the way. So it can be considered distracting, something that keeps them from 100% focused on keeping the machine in line and on track. We've moved it to the other end of the machine now, so the power supply is coming in at the other end. It'll be trailing behind the welding process. So it should be less of an issue during the welding process and fairly easy to manage when moving back, up to your next seam, because all I'm doing is moving a machine. I'm not welding in that process. So it's not as distracting.
And it makes sense. It makes total sense. Yeah.
So those are, some of the key mechanical highlights as we kind of, have taken our walk around the machine. The 300 is what I guess we would consider a base model machine, right? So it still has a digital interface on it. So it has a display that has independent controls for temperature, speed, and airflow, but there really aren't any advanced menu systems to it like they might be used to with some of our other machines like a V2. So, they're not going to be able to see their incoming voltage. There's no advanced menus to allow them to see hours on the machine or distance traveled, no custom recipes, no preset recipes. Those are some things that people have gotten quite used to having at their fingertips. Again, base models. So, we're just trying to provide a high quality welding machine, but not a whole lot of bells and whistles to it. Again, basic.
Yeah.
The blower will be a brushed motor, so really wouldn't have the same kind of airflow characteristics that maybe they're used to with a V2. They can still weld with it. It just requires a little bit of a change in the mindset and adjusting to the procedures, and running their tests and getting it dialed in. But, again, it will certainly do the job, but it may have a few different characteristics to it, again, because it's going to have different airflow. And, again, it doesn't have, regulated electronics, like the V2 has or like the other machines will have. So these are all some things that can affect the way that the machine would respond to some challenging electrical power supply things. But, outside of that, it's going to be a great machine.
Yeah. I mean, and it's the perfect machine, like you said, base machine, but you could go up one level to the 500. So let's talk about that. What's that look like? What's that difference?
Sure. We packed a lot in the 500. So I think there's going to be a lot of value in the 500. I think for anybody who's a V2 user today, will find the 500 to be very friendly and very similar in terms of the kind of features plus more. I mean, so first and foremost, they're getting all these new things mechanically as you walk around the machine, as we just reviewed. But in addition to that, there's definitely some additional benefits in electronics and features that are built in. Number one, so it's going to have a different display on it. It's kind of a hybrid mix between what they're used to with our old e-drives and what our newer digital displays are like. So it has that push button turn interface on it, turn and push to select. So most people will be very, very familiar with how that operates. But so one of the first things that we built into it is what we call our monitored welding assistant. We've talked about this before in our Uniroof 700. It's kind of tied in with our LQS and whatnot. But the monitored welding assistant is kind of a neat new feature. And what that allows users to do is set parameter limit ranges, plus or minus. So when the nozzle's engaged and you're actively welding, if there's something that happens mechanically or electronically that takes one of those welding parameters outside of that limit range, they're going to get an alarm on the machine. So that the display will flash red. There'll be an audible alarm that would tell the operator that perhaps these changes in a setting, could take you outside of your welding window and potentially impact weld quality. So the thought process would be, hey, stop the welding process, assess the conditions, take corrective actions before continuing to weld. So it's kind of a quality management tool that's in there. It's tied in our Uniroof 700s, and now we're rolling this into the VARIMAT 500 as well. It'll be a standard feature in there. And you'll start to see some other things in the display as well that you maybe have seen before in a VARIMAT V2. Again, so you can see what we call the duty info, where that's the hours on the machine, the distance traveled. You have the ability to create custom recipes. There's preload recipes or parameter recipes, combinations in there. You clearly can see your set parameters, your actual settings, your incoming voltage is all visible right there. We added another feature, an LED work light. So that is on the underside of the machine. It shines an LED light and illuminates the entire work area right at the work zone, right before the pressure wheel where the nozzle's inserted. So if you have challenging lighting conditions, early morning or evenings, or working in the desert when you work at night, now you have an illuminated workspace if you use
That's what I was just thinking that. I thought of all the people who have to work, all these hot temperatures we have, they're working throughout the evenings and night. So that's awesome. And I love the technology, all the display. That's great.
Yeah. So, and then the other thing that comes in the 500 is what we call power management, right? So that's a system that we've put in that helps the machine perform optimally under challenging under voltage conditions. Okay. And again, on another podcast we talked about some of the challenges with power supply. It's just
Yes,
the
we did.
reality of working on job sites today. And so, on a machine that doesn't have this kind of technology built in, when the voltage starts to drop, it can have adverse effects on the way that machine performs, including its ability to either reach or maintain some of the highest temperature settings. And so it could become more challenging for operators to figure out how to work with it under those conditions. And our engineers have worked hard to try to overcome some of these, realities. And so the system's set up where, we can operate even up to a tolerance of up to 20% of a voltage drop. But once that threshold is hit, the machine is set up to go automatically to shutdown. So it does that to try to protect it, to protect the process, but protect the equipment as well. So that power management helps manage that whole process. That's just an unfortunate reality of job
it really is.
sites today.
Yeah. When you look at putting all of this together, I also let's talk just real quick about the app, my Leister app, because it connects right with this new display and the 500.
Yeah. So the My Leister app, it's free to download and operate the My Leister app. So yeah, there's a Wi-Fi signal that's put off by the machine that's the communication protocol on how a mobile device running the My Leister app will communicate with the machine. So with a 500, you still have the ability to use the app to create custom recipes, and then they can be transferred, onto the machine. So if you have multiple machines, you can create these custom recipes, which could maybe just change based on mill thickness or manufacturer or ambient conditions. I mean, it's really up to the end user to kind of determine, how you want to set those up. But if you have multiple machines, you can then save all those recipes. So everybody kind of operating your machines can all work out of the same hymnal, so to speak, right? So that's available and part of the package on the 500.
Okay, and then the cream of the crop, 700. Tell us about it.
Okay, so the 700 has everything that we talked about with the 500, and it also is LQS enabled. So again, LQS stands for Leister Quality System. This is basically the data recording and the data acquisition that takes place in the background on the machine. So again, every time that the nozzle is inserted, the key welding data is recorded in the background on the machine. So that would be the temperature, the speed, the airflow, the incoming voltage into the machine. And now also the welding pressure is being recorded and part of what's being tracked. Okay, so one of the things that's available as an accessory on the 700, and by the way, it's also going to be available for the 500, but it's called weight detection.
Oh, yeah.
Basically, in that area on the top of the machine, I told you where the secondary accessory weights can sit. It's a load cell, basically, that gets installed into that. It ties into the machine, and it detects those extra weights. So we know what the base weight is of the machine, the base pressure on the pressure wheel, and then it's also tracking any additional weights and accounting for those. So in the display, you'll now see temperature, speed, airflow, and the weight would be seen in the display, also then recorded in the background as part of LQS. So, and we added another new feature tied in with LQS as well. So, one of the things that material manufacturers talk about all the time is the importance of running test welds, prior to the start of every day or every time there's a significant break. Run those test welds, make sure that you have those parameters dialed in before you do any production work. Well, now with the 700, you have the ability to go in and differentiate a weld from being a test weld to being a production weld. So it, in a sense, will document the fact that it's a test weld. So again, if there was ever a question as to what was done as a test weld and what were those parameters that were used for that test weld, it would be differentiated in that data report.
Okay. We had a whole podcast on this with the data and the app and being able to have those reports and set the parameters and the recipes. So I think it's brilliant. And to know that now you have the top of the line kind of bringing everything together in that 700, all the technology.
Right, right. And I think a lot of, real forward-thinking contractors are seeing the value in archiving this information and saving it. I mean, it's a useful tool, first and foremost, in real time, to have access to this information, but then, retrieve it off the machines, create the data reports, and use it sort of as a safety net, in a sense, to be able to, refer back to it and make sure that, everything looked like it was in order. And again, if that monitored welding assistant that I mentioned was active during any one of those welds, that would be indicated on that welding report. It could be used as a warning, in a sense, to say, hey, we had a monitored welding assistant alarm go off on weld number 7. So let's go back and let's track ourselves back to weld number 7. Let's look at that again before we walk off this project, right? So, and then, obviously we know that things happen on jobs and things can happen after the fact. And it could be a year down the road, could be 5 years down the road, and somebody asks questions about what was done, whether it's issue related to welding or not, but at least it's been archived. It's something could be referred back to later on and say, well, here's what we did. Right?
Yeah. And I think that, we talked in that, and if anybody hasn't listened to the podcast that Dave and I did on the technology of Leister on the LQS, that it is phenomenal. You need to go listen to it. But really, when you think about that, Dave, the risk mitigation that and the documentation that comes from that, it's so important. And like you said, it's available. Most of this is, or some of this is available with the 500. You can still get your display. You can see everything that's going on. But getting those reports in that 700 really is a big differentiator. But I do have a question. Okay, so for those contractors out there right now who are listening to this and saying, I love my V2, which one of the new 3 models is going to be comparable to the V2? Kind of what would you recommend?
I would say if someone's looking to basically have as many of the features that they're used to with a V2, I'd say it's probably going to align the closest with the 500. And it will also from a price standpoint, because we're going to be able to bring that new 500 machine in at the price point that they're accustomed to with the V2. So, we're very excited about the ability to be able to be, able to do that. But yet, here's all the things that you're used to, the benefits of a V2 and more, So, we think that we're adding a lot of value for basically the same dollar.
Yeah. So. And you're launching this right around IRE 2024. Very exciting. So as contractors who want to come or who are ready or who want to get this new VARIMAT or either 300, 500, 700, or even get more information about it, tell us a little bit about where they can get it and also about IRE.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're going to be, of course, featuring this front and center during the IRE. We're going to be running a demonstration station there to run the VARIMAT for 3 days straight to let people take a look at the newest, where I have all the machines there on display running live demos for the VARIMAT. We know that that'll be our feature in the booth. We're running, a couple other things there as well. But really, this is, we're here and it's all about this new platform because it's a big deal. I mean, we've been out with this machine for 14 years, but I swear for at least the last 3 or 4, every trade show I attend, somebody walks up to me and says, when's the V3 coming out? Everybody's been expecting the V3 for a while because, they looked at our history and they looked and say, okay, yeah, Leister comes out with a new machine every 6-7 years or so. You're past due.
Right.
So, this is a process, Heidi. I mean, this took a long time. This has been years in the works.
Yeah.
I've known about this. I've sat on this for a really long
You're good
time.
at keeping secrets.
Yeah, thanks. But I've wanted to tell people for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
But it's literally years in the works. If you talk about from concept to actual creation and production, it's a very, very long time. And, Leister takes a lot of pride, in quality and bringing things out and doing things right. And so, they as much as they'd love to get a new product out as quickly as possible, they also take a very responsible approach to it and make sure that it's ready.
Yeah. Well, it's ready and it's going to be at IRE. So for everyone out there, go visit it.
Yeah, come see us at the IRE, but also we'll have information on our website, of course, Leister.com. They could also contact our office and talk to us. We'll get you plugged in with one of our regional distribution partners who all have this machine. So yeah, give us a call, 855 Leister, or you can, contact us through our contact page on the website as well. We'll get you linked up, set up.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. Check with your distributor of Leister equipment that you use right now. Be asking them, because it's out there and you can work with them. Also, of course, you can get all this information on the directory, on Leister directory on Roofers Coffee Shop. So, Dave, thank you for sharing this big news with us. We're so happy to have it on Roofing Road Trips.
No, it's my pleasure. I always enjoy the visit.
Oh, I love it too. Well, we will be seeing you. We'll be in that booth and we'll be coming and checking it out. So we'll see you at IRE.
Looking forward to it.
Okay. And thank you all for listening. Wow. Exciting news, new machines for the 2024. Check it out at the IRE and also on the Leister directory. Check out all of our podcasts. Tons of new information that's coming out with every episode under the RLW navigation under Roofing Road Trips or on your favorite podcast channel. Be sure to subscribe and set those notifications. We will be seeing you next time on Roofing Road Trips.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave a review. Thanks for listening. This has been Roofing Road Trips with Heidi from therooferscoffeeshop.com.